I'll use molestation. I feel like that's more appropriate because it wasn't necessarily assault, but I was molested when I was 4 by another student, and he was 5. And I know it sounds already disgusting, but I have no ill will towards this person. I could tell that, knowing what happened to me, I could tell that he is a victim himself. There was probably some family member that did this to him, or he was watching something that he was, not allowed to be watching and was mimicking, because children, they mimic what they see. Of course, that's how children speak. That's how they learn. They see what adults are doing and then they copy it. So I can understand that what happened to me was awful. I didn't know what was going on. I had no clue that what was happening was molestation. I was just on the bus with this child and he started touching me very inappropriately and we started making out. And I didn't even know when any of what was going on. I just let it happen. And I don't think he understood fully what he was doing either because he was only 5. He was just mimicking either what a parent or a grandparent or like the unfortunate truth is someone was doing that to him.
This is where it starts, isn't it? This is because teenage boys are stupid and they do stupid things. I can vouch for that because I have been a teenage boy and I did stupid things. Fortunately, not this kind of stuff. And that's why the responsibility rests with older men to be aware of what the boys in your life are up to. And if you find out they're doing shit like this, shut it down quickly and explain why they shouldn't be doing it. And before I'm accused of being a woke lefty, let's read the categories that the photographs of these girls were assigned into. What have we got here? We've got wifeys, cuties, mid, object, that's nice, get out, and you can read the last one yourself because I'm not going to. So all you guys that are complaining about wokeism and lefties and political correctness and it just being a bit of fun, I wonder where you'd like your daughter placing in that category, your pre-teen or teen daughter. Because if this is not checked when they get older, this attitude moves forward and then all kinds of things happen. This is why women are picking bears, guys. It's because there are men out there that started like this and kept this attitude into manhood. It needs to be stopped, and it needs to be stopped early.
All of the following crimes took place during 2024. In Spain, during May, a 12-year-old disabled girl was gang raped by 8 male classmates, as the Daily Mail reports, after she was removed from the sight of students and teachers and taken to the girl's bathroom during a break where the gang rape allegedly occurred. The article notes that the girl described the incident to her grandmother as follows. "They grabbed my hands and they opened my legs and they made love to me," to which the grandmother responded, "No, my dear, that's not making love." However, since all children involved in the horrific attack were born between 2011 and 2012, making them 12 and 13 years old, means that the juvenile prosecutor's office cannot carry out any kind of investigation, as according to Spanish juvenile law, when a perpetrator of rape is under the age of 14, he or she won't be held liable. In Thailand, during August, the Tiger reports that 6 schoolboy football players gang raped and blackmailed 2 13-year-old girls in an athlete dormitory at a school in the central province of Kanchanaburi. The football coach claimed that the victims appeared to have consented to the sex. According to the father of one of the victims, the 2 schoolgirls were tricked into meeting the gang at the dormitory for the athletes of the school. Aside from raping the girls, the rapist also recorded videos of the victims to blackmail them and share. The youngest rapist was 11 years old and the oldest was 15 years old. In France during June, the Daily Mail reports that a 12-year-old Jewish girl had been raped during the weekend by 3 youths, one of whom she said was her ex-boyfriend. 2 of the suspects, both 13, were charged with gang rape, anti-Semitic insults, and violence and issuing death threats, and held in custody. The 3rd boy, 12, was also charged with anti-Semitic insults and violence and issuing death threats, but not with rape.
The National Police Chief's League for Violence Against Women, the NSPCC, Rape Crisis, Safer Schools, they are all naming you as being behind an epidemic of misogyny, even amongst primary school children.
1 in 3 of those child sexual abuse cases are at the hand of another child. 1/3. That's a lot. It's one of the reasons why I'll never stop promoting these books, because even though it doesn't talk about children as perpetrators, it does give you the opportunity to be able to open up the conversation for your child to know what safe and unsafe touch is, no matter who the person is.
A trend emerges. Young boys, children who have yet to be recognized by the law as culpable for their own actions in many circumstances, are committing heinous acts of sexual violence against female children, often in groups. In the past, a child who had knowledge of sexual terms was considered to show signs of having experienced sexual abuse.
That video just proved to me that there is an epidemic of people who do not understand child-on-child sexual abuse. I've not really shared a lot of my experience with child-on-child sexual abuse because I personally carry a lot of shame because I was the perpetrator in some instances as well as the victim in some instances. So yes, I experienced child-on-child sexual abuse. My brothers would touch me inappropriately and I would touch them inappropriately. But when it comes to this form of child-on-child sexual abuse, it looks extremely covert. That's why I keep getting comments like, it's just a hug, you're a snowflake, people overreact, you're diminishing real sexual abuse. And it's like what those people are purposely not listening to is the fact that I had a history of child sexual abuse already, which is why my mother forced my brother to hug me that way. No one is saying that the hug itself was sexual abuse. Although I do just want to point out that whether you're a child or an adult, anytime you touch somebody knowing that they do not want you to, or you force somebody else to touch somebody knowing that they do not want you to, or you are touched without your consent, that is abuse. It does not matter what your family relation is or how close you are to a person. If somebody touches you without your consent and knowing that you feel violated, they have abused you. Is it sexual abuse when siblings hug each other? No, it's not. Is it sexual abuse when two siblings choose to hug? Absolutely not. And nobody is saying that it is. Is it sexual abuse when two siblings do not want to hug, but the mother forces one of the siblings to hug her and bury his face in her chest simply because the mother knows that her daughter has been sexually abused by her husband, and it makes her daughter feel violated and uncomfortable and would make for a better photo to post on Facebook for all of the friends to see and humiliate the children over? That is sexual abuse. That is child-on-child sexual abuse. When it comes to child-on-child sexual abuse, we need to remember that both children are always the victim. I think what's really riling people up when I'm calling this child-on-child sexual abuse is because they're assuming that I'm saying my brother is at fault or I'm holding my brother to some degree of accountability in this situation when I'm not at all. He was just as much of a victim. He equally did not want to hug me. He equally did not want to bury his face in his sister's chest. The reason our abuse went on for so long and nobody helped us was because people chalked it up to this. They're just naughty kids being naughty. Mom made them hug it out. What is the big deal? When what's really going on is both children have been stripped of their bodily autonomy and now they are being publicly humiliated for doing something that was completely developmentally normal.
Today, with the average age of first exposure to pornography settling between the ages of 11 and 13, it's only a sign of the changing times. However, as a result of this early exposure, children are now committing the majority of sex crimes against children. And to be clear, a gender divide exists there too, as it is male children offending against female children. It should come as no surprise that even young girls are identifying as transgender in an effort to evade the misogynistic abuse and expectations placed upon children. Childhoods are being cut short with the introduction of pornography, which is often conflated with the sex education itself. The American College of Pediatricians notes that viewing pornography at a young age is disruptive and harmful to a child's mental health. In a report updated during 2024, they note, pornography exposure at these young ages often results in anxiety for the child. Children also report feelings of disgust, shock, embarrassment, anger, fear, and sadness after viewing pornography. These children can suffer all the symptoms of anxiety and depression. They may become obsessed with acting out adult sexual acts that they have seen, and this can be very disruptive and disturbing to the child's peers who witness or are victimized by this behavior. Children under 12 years old who have viewed pornography are statistically more likely to sexually assault their peers. In sum, children exposed to pornographic material are at risk for a broad range of maladaptive behaviors and psychopathology. However, in recent years, the delineation of adult and child spaces has become less and less clear. Simultaneously, child-on-child sex abuse rates have sharply risen, with an article from The Guardian reporting a 40% increase between 2019 and 2022, where both the alleged victim and perpetrator were under 18, as well as a 33% increase in rape reports and a 26% increase in reports where the allegation was against a child aged under 10. Another article published on The Guardian by Vikram Dodd noted that in 2022, a total of 107,000 reports were made to police in England and Wales, alleging sexual offenses against children, ranging from rapes, and in a quarter of cases, to the making and sharing of indecent images. The NPCC said 52% of alleged offenders were children, compared with around one-third a decade ago. Police received reports of 14,800 rapes and sexual assaults against children aged 10 to 17, where the suspect was classed as a child, and the overwhelming majority being boys. Police and psychologists point to the rise of misogynistic content online and the spread of violent pornography as the reason behind these changes.
Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. But it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
What would you do if you did get a girl pregnant?
Hit the road? Nah, I'm playing. As long as it's not a girl.
Videos like this are chipping away at my ability to believe. Like every podcast, every like on a video like this, every comment of support on a video like this is like chipping away. And maybe it's because I'm getting older and I know how a guy who thinks a good guy can end up not being a good guy. And there are these like core under the surface beliefs about women and girls. And every guy I meet, I'm supposed to just have hearts in my eyes and I'm supposed to assume that he miraculously is some like unicorn who hasn't been conditioned by society like all these other men. And then I'm getting myself into a situation where I lose. Or in a position where I have to explain why I deserve respect. Or why I'm like them. Like just as real. Like knowing how deeply ingrained these things are in our culture and then having to turn around and being expected to be like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Does this make sense? I don't know.
A 2021 study conducted in sub-Saharan Africa with 105 participants found that in the 12 months preceding the interview, between 77.6% and 89.2% of male participants performed violent sex acts inspired by porn that included inflicting physical or psychological violence on their partners. In the same period, between 8.5 and 16.8% of female participants performed the same. Females, 63.1% of them, were shown to be much more affected by the negative consequences, depression, low self-esteem, physical and psychological trauma, associated with the practice of violent sexual practices inspired by porn compared to males. The main mechanisms by which these practices are adopted and normalized were reported to be imitation, reinforcement, desire for recognition, addiction, development of sexual scripts, misunderstanding about women's sexual desire, gender inequalities, cognitive and psychosocial biases, and manipulation of the partner's consent.
Masturbation and pornography are potently tapping into the dopamine system and can undermine the very processes of what I consider healthy processes of finding a mate, dating, communication, eventually, if it's appropriate, sexual interaction,
etc.
Like
it's undermining pair bonding.
And pair bonding.
So here's a question. If you're seeking sexual release through pornography and you go through the whole cycle and you get a prolactin release, do you bond with yourself?
The biology explains it as what's left there is a kind of an open loop, right? Because bonding with the self is a complicated notion. I mean, there's a healthy version of that, of course, loving oneself and self-referencing. But in the absence of a real partner there, absence of real sexual partner, there's an open loop of neurochemicals, including oxytocin and prolactin. The dopamine, remember, dopamine goes up during pursuit, anticipation, then peaks and then crashes below baseline after orgasm and ejaculation. So this kind of low that people fear is putting them into an amotivated state.
Sexual education and work to decrease the shame around sex are goals that have been twisted to suggest that fetish, kink, and pornography are normal and representative of a healthy sex life and relationship with sex. It is the normalization, pervasiveness, and ease of access which has led many children to stumble into pornography. But one must also blame the insistence that obvious examples of sexual intrusion are not actually abnormal and are beyond criticism for this trend. The conflation of homosexuality with kink has also led to the conflation of tolerance with the need to ignore that inappropriate and dangerous sexualization exists. Kinksters at Pride or in public are not harmful, they argue. Sex is no different than any other kind of activity or labor, those pushing the sex work is work line claim. Meanwhile, less and less people are having normal sexual experiences and introductions. Hypersexuality or asexuality are becoming increasingly popular stances as moderate, nonviolent, and private sexual experiences are consistently portrayed negatively. Meanwhile, violence and sex are shown to be normal and desirable. The result is obvious. Children hurting children, under the premise they are mimicking what adults do, even as adult sexuality is ruined by the same belief that everyone else enjoys hurting and being hurt too. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I find this to be very, very concerning because I do recall when I was younger, 5th grade, 2 kids were in trouble for having sex in the bathroom. Elementary school, 5th grade, these were like 11 and 12-year-olds. And that was a shocking thing. It was incredibly shocking. Nobody knew how to react to that. It was something that stood out. Now, it's par for the course. And the thing is, it's gotten worse. When I was talking about how it is to be a woman in India, it wasn't just that sexual violence existed. It was the violence inherent to it that was the really disturbing part. It wasn't just that women were getting raped, it was that women were getting gang raped and burnt alive and carved into. And it's bad enough that it happens in certain areas, that it's more common in certain places. It's becoming so normalized that it's not even like a cultural issue, and it's a mainstream part of what is considered sexual scripts and sexual education. If we have abstinence-only sex education, for example, in the U.S. South, and kids are watching porn at 8, 9, 10, 11, how do you teach them that what they're watching is not real? Kids are stupid. Hell, adults are stupid. Most people do not know how to tell the difference between fiction and reality when it comes to certain concepts. Or worse yet, they don't recognize the influence that media plays on their own desires or what they view as normal. And they'll insist that they're not being influenced, they're not having a bias, and that makes it incredibly hard to address later. These children are learning what they think real sex is, and that's what they're presenting as normal to their peers. I just find it to be very frustrating. And I think that if I ever happen to have a daughter, and I know some people in the audience do have children, God, you have to keep such a close eye on them now. I don't even know if I could trust public schools or sports or being able to give them the free reign that younger generations were able to have because of just how ubiquitous and commonplace and difficult to prevent this kind of violence is. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.